I think that first of all, you're going to have to want to give back. You're going to have to want to make an impact, and I think part of that is some things that we can do as a society by promoting or advertising things that we're doing in the community, positive things that people say, I want to be part of that. Is ways that you can give back, and it's really rewarding. I truly believe this community will look, feel, and even be different without the impact of the various nonprofits in town. What's going to be coming up in the next year is collective bargaining, how we're going to carry out and implement the zoning ordinance, and continue to tackle education and affordable housing. It may sound like a broken record, but it's always going to be there until we solve it.
My guest today is Juandiego Wade, a graduate of Norfolk State University and the University of Virginia, a career coordinator for Albemarle County, and the current mayor of Charlottesville City. I hope you enjoy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Juandiego?
Great.
Doing well, yeah. How have things been?
Busy but blessed, man. Busy but blessed.
Yeah, I'd imagine. How are you liking the snow?
Yeah, it's. I don't know. Are you where are you now? Near campus or?
I'm in Albemarle County, just at home with my family.
Yeah, it's coming down pretty crazy here, but it's not sticking because it's pretty warm. But if you look outside, it looks like a snowstorm, but it's not too bad,
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's get right into it.
Okay.
Obviously now you've got a lot going on. You were just elected mayor, which congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really exciting. When I heard that, I was really excited to hear it. But before we talk about that and everything you're doing now, I just want to talk about growing up, your experience, and your things in early life.
Yeah. So I just feel blessed. I was always, raised in a very nurturing neighborhood, community, and home. Um, I grew up in Richmond, and I had a big family, and three sisters and two brothers. There's six of us, and just close knit. We had plenty of kids in the neighborhood that we played with, but we always had each other as well, and we all were involved with school, class presidents, and SCA presidents, and things like that. So, always been connected with the school and the community, and I went to Norfolk State University, and went there from 84 to 88, got a degree in urban environmental planning, and came here to UVA in 88 to get my master's in urban environmental planning. But through all that entire time, through high school and college, I always was giving back to the community, volunteering and mentoring. And so that carried over to, getting settled here in the Charlottesville community.
Yeah. So, yeah, speaking to that, what do you think were some of the more formative experiences that you had when you were younger? Because obviously you said you did, a lot of mentoring and a lot of community service, but for young people, I don't think that's something that, everybody goes out of the way to do.
Yeah, I think that for me, some of the formative things was our family. My father was a teacher for Richmond Public Schools for nearly 40 years. And but he was also a minister and a musician. And we had a singing group as a family. All of us couldn't sing, and I was one of them. Maybe I was the only one that couldn't sing. But that process of us practicing and traveling together, it was just formative, for us to be a tight-knit family now. And I think that played a big role in who I am today. Those times with my brothers and sisters and family, and practicing by the piano or organ after school. And so I think that was real formative. I think just growing up in a close-knit community in Richmond. And I just look back and I just don't have any bad memories of growing up, even though, of course, I never, got everything I wanted or anything like that. But I didn't, it was just, to me, it was just part of growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So you went to high school, graduated, and then you decided to go to Norfolk State University
Mm-hmm.
and study urban planning. What influenced your decision to do that? Why did you decide to choose Norfolk State?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, my goal was to go to Morehouse. I applied to go to Morehouse, and I didn't get in. And Norfolk State was my kind of safety school, and quite honestly, it was the best decision that I ever made. I mean, the time I spent there is just so um, formative for me because, of course, I joined my fraternity there. My fraternity brothers were still close now. The professors that I had there, it prepared me um, for UVA and life. It was just really close knit, and just loved my time there at Norfolk State. The whole HBU experience with the bands on weekends and going there, and my fraternity brothers and my roommates. I mean, it was great, and so before one of the reasons I decided to do urban planning is that I thought about growing up in Richmond and seeing I-95 go through communities of color destroying like Jackson Ward. And the church that I went through when I 195, which is a small express route, going through impacting the church that I grew up in. As I was, all of these things was just, you know, I was like, well, why is it picking on our neighborhood? And then I would go up to 95 in Baltimore, Philly, New York, and all of the ways through those, there would be communities of color that these roads were going. Why? And so that's why I got into planning, understanding how cities develop, why you develop here and roads there, and so that's why I think that just those formative times of seeing how things happen, and now I understand. I'm in the middle of a lot of it, so.
Yeah. So is that something you saw yourself doing as a young man, or what were your original plans?
Oh, that's a good question. I would definitely say no. It came later. I always thought that I wanted to be a doctor as a young person in high school, still trying to figure it out. And I volunteered at the local hospital, Chippenham Hospital. And But my math scores and things like that said maybe you want to try something else. And so I had other interests as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think particularly like but for me, like in the phase of life that I'm in,
Hmm.
a lot of times we think like we make one plan and it pans out perfectly. Like that's
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
do. Um,
yeah,
but so me and a lot of my peers, I think, are in the phase where we're making a plan, but it's changing a lot, and we haven't really committed to anything. So it's good to hear that it's kind of a process that you have to figure out.
yeah. So what I would recommend, because now I do career counseling. I work with a lot of first time job seeker, career changers, and things like that. And I can use myself as an example as well. Is that I've been with Albemarle County for 33 years. I always thought I would be a transportation planner doing planning, and that's what I went to school for. But about, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, my supervisor came into my office right in the middle of a recession and said, well, we need you to change jobs because we're not going to be building roads in the county anymore. And and I was fortunate that I had many other skills to fall back on, and that's how I got into social services. So what I advise young people is that someone like yourself, I've been at one company for 33 years. Someone like you will probably, have 5 or 6 studies show that you're going to have 5 or 6 different whole professions and jobs and things that you do. So what you have to do, what I advise you to do is just learn um, those fundamental skill sets that are transferable to other jobs. And that's what I was able to do just on a much bigger or small different scale. I'm still with the same company, but what I'm reading, what you're going to have to be doing is that you're going to be like a freelance worker going from place to place. So you have to set those skill sets where things like you're doing now, be able to talk, to tell your story, to be able to work in different places and environments. And part of that is being able to work in a diverse work environment, work with different people, different religion, different foods and things like that. It's real important that you have that skill set. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice.
Mhm.
That's something I'm trying to do. So
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, you go to Norfolk State University. You major in urban planning,
Mhm.
and then you go to UVA. And I'd imagine that's a pretty big change in culture.
Well, it was, because I came from a public school in Richmond, and it was probably the roughest school in Richmond, and but I felt that I got a good education, but not too many students from our school aspired to go to UVA because it was still is and as then a tough school to get into. And when I went to UVA, because I didn't go there before I applied, I got there and I just kind of packed up my car and I went there. And at the time, having personal computers was not a thing. They had big computer rooms with, a couple hundred computers in there. The kids come in there, type up and print off, and you do that. And so UVA had a couple of these rooms, and I went in there. I was just totally mesmerized. This place has thousands of computers for kids to use. And at Norfolk State, we had 5 in the library, and it was mainly for research and not for papers. So it was just, I'm like, this is yet another disadvantage that our students of person of color in the HBUs have. And so I was like, man, I'm going to get mopped up at this place. But when we got into the classrooms, I realized that my professors and things had prepared me well, and I was doing just as well as my colleagues in my graduate class from Yale, William and Mary, ODU, or UVA. So it's not necessarily school you go to, but how you prepare yourself and how you prepared.
Hmm. Yeah. So did you face any specific challenges or difficulties when you were transitioning from Norfolk?
Yeah. So I tell this story often that one of the things that happened to me. So, uh, at the time, again, there's no cell phones. Everything that you wanted to do, you had to, it was newspaper. So I found this place that I wanted to live, and it was in the Montview subdivision. And I know where it is now, but then I had no idea that it says close to the university. And if you know anything about what Montview is if you take Barracks Road out, is kind of going towards Foxfield, a
Hmm.
few miles out from Barracks Road. So when I got there into town, I stopped at Barracks Road and stopped at and went to a payphone. And I called the person just to get some further directions from that point. And they're like, "Oh, you're almost here." The person answered the phone and said, "Oh, you're almost here." Because I wanted to go look at a room, by the way. I was going to look at a room. And so it's only 3 or 4 minutes away from um, Barracks Road. And so I go there, I knock on the door. I'm like, this is the address sheet and everything. She said that it was this and that and this. And no one answered the door. No one answered the door. I'm like, what? I just talk. I know she here. And then I see the curtains move. So I know that they see me. I was like, oh, they see who it is. I mean,
Hmm.
I wasn't. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. I was like, oh, so they see that it's a person of color. Hey, these are conclusions that I'm making. I mean, you know, so I knocked maybe 3 or 4 times. I'm not going to bust down the door, and I realized at that point that I'm going away from the university, so I wasn't going to stay there anyway. And I actually didn't have a car. I was borrowing someone's. I was going to be riding my bike anyway. So it, I, I don't know if I would have stayed there or not. I may have, you know, um, ridden my bike. But and anyway, that was my introduction to Charlottesville. That was my introduction, not being able to, being shut out. So I found a much more um, convenient location at basically right behind the corner restaurant, but and worked out well. I could walk or ride my bike. I got a car a little bit later, but that I didn't let that deter me. I knew this was a great opportunity for me, and but that was my introduction to Charlottesville.
Yeah, I imagine that's definitely not the right foot to start on coming to a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
place. So
Mhm.
yeah, but what do you think like kept you? I feel like a lot of people, if they encounter something like that, they would be deterred to change directions, or they might say this isn't for me. So what sort of gave you that inspiration, that motivation to continue?
So my wife and I, when we came here, because we actually moved here in '99, but I've been working here since '91. We had no intentions of kind of staying here. Our goal was to maybe do a couple of years and get some experience and go into a bigger city, maybe in Atlanta, Charlotte, or DC, or back home to Richmond. But the community drew us in. It was the people. It was our, the sense of community that we had here. It was like, you know what, this is where we're going to raise our family, and so we haven't looked back. We have raised our daughter here, and and both of us are really involved in the community here. So it's um it's our home.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of you being involved in the community, you have been involved with what seems like an infinite number of nonprofits
Mhm.
that you've dedicated a lot of time to. So when
Yeah.
did you start getting involved with nonprofits?
So it's one of those things that I was always volunteering, but even at UV, when I was at Norfolk, it wasn't with nonprofits in the community. It was just things with my fraternity. When I got here, I think that it started by simply someone asking me. I was walking down Market Street, and a lady said, "Do you want to volunteer for the United Way?" With that campaign. And I said, sure. I had some connections with the local NAACP because I did my senior thesis at UVA on it. So I had some connections there, but I said, sure. And that's how I began volunteering with the United Way. And from that, the way the nonprofits a lot work here is like, oh, particularly if you're a person of color and young involved, there a lot of nonprofits want you on their board. And so my back then, if you can imagine, I was at 25, 26, and I wanted to learn. And so what I would join nonprofits, I would usually become the secretary or the treasurer or the parliamentarian or something like that, where I could sit back and observe, learn the process, look at people who have been leaders in the community and see them. And that was really beneficial for me. And now, it's 30 some years later, I realize now that I'm the leader in some of these nonprofits and things, and people are looking up to me. But I've learned a lot, and so I found that um uh, and I when I'm asked now to join boards, and I don't have the capacity to do that, but over the last 30 years, I've just grown to know a lot of people. And so what I'm doing now is I'm populating boards with recommendations that I'll give them from other people that I know that have come to me and said, I want to serve, but they don't know how or where to begin. And I have made, literally countless connections with boards, individuals, and things like that and they're on boards now, and is just so rewarding to see.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, you've obviously done a lot of community service, and you've served the community in a lot of ways. But I'm curious, what how do you think we can influence more people to do stuff like that? Because it's one thing to do it yourself, but I think to spread a mindset is a completely different challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I think that first of all, you're going to have to want to give back. You're going to have to want to make an impact, and I think part of that is some things that we can do as a society by promoting or advertising um, things that we're doing in the community, positive things that people's like, I want to be part of that. I'm blessed. I want to be able to help others so that they can see. But if they don't have that inkling, if they don't have that fire in them to even give back, then it's going to be hard to just like, here, you can do this. But I think that if they do, you want to meet them where they are. You don't want to, we have enough nonprofits in this community to meet everyone's need. If you want to work with young people, we're not going to, no need to send you to a senior center to volunteer. Work with younger people. There's something to do there. And even, more specifically, if you want to work with someone doing arts, then there's an organization to do that. Work with computers, computer for kids, or what sports is things for that. So it's really something for everyone to do. And if you don't want to deal with anyone at all, but you want to give back, then you can go volunteer for someone in their office, filing things for them, typing things for them, or helping them with their accounting or whatever. Is ways that you can give back, and it's really rewarding. I truly believe this community will look, feel, and even be different without the impact of the various nonprofits in town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forwarding a little bit, you start working for Albemarle County. You served on the board of many nonprofits, as we discussed, and then you started serving on the school board as well. So what sort of inspired you to take that step?
Yeah, so one of the things that I did when I first got here is that I through the fraternity, we had a mentoring program, Alpha Journeyman, and we took a group of young men from Walker, 5th, 6th grade, all the way through high school, and that ended in about 2005. But through that time, I saw a lot of changes and things that I wanted to make through the process of seeing these young boys. And right about that time, the city of Charlottesville had their first elected school board, and people strongly suggested I should run for it. And I did, and I won. And we had 16 years later, here, I was on school board, and it was an incredible opportunity for me. I feel like we did a lot, and I was chair a few times, but I also had the opportunity to serve at the statewide level to be president of the whole Virginia School Board Association, where we represented 133 school districts across the whole state, from districts from Fairfax to Franklin, from Wise to Winchester. So it was an amazing experience to travel across the country and the state to hear their concerns and to express their concerns to decision makers at the state and national level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you serve on the school board, and then you're elected to city council in 2021.
Yes. Now the official started actually in January 1 of 2022, but I was elected in November of 2021.
Mm-hmm. So what was the feeling of being first getting to city council? Because I'd imagine, more responsibility comes with maybe a little bit of stress and
yeah. City council at the time was pretty crazy. It was not a good space. It was, what some people describe as a very toxic environment with personal attacks, with long meetings, and it just wasn't a good space. And people were really concerned for me going into that space. They were like, Juan, you're just kind of calm. And some people said they need that kind of calm, steady leadership, but others like, Juan, we like you, we love you, we don't want you to go there because it's going to change you or whatever. So, and I like to tell people that I wanted to enter that environment just like I would mentor my young men, is that I want you to be that positive change. I don't want you to go in there and them change you and you be bad. You want to go in there and you want to be that positive change. And I believe we've done that with city council. It's a much different space now than it was just a few years ago. It's not perfect, but nothing is. And we, we have some, we're still having that. We're still addressing the critical issues that they were before. And, but we're just doing it in just more respectful dialogue now. And before, when the meetings were really tough, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, what they were going through with COVID and, the issues just getting off of the 2017 route. It just was a difficult time. And I'm not saying that blaming any group of people, because if it had happened last year, we may be in the same space now anyway. So time heals a lot.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. So now you find yourself as mayor. I want to know what inspired you, what motivated you to be mayor?
Well, it was time for me to step up to the plate. I had been vice mayor for a couple of years, and the time was rolling around again. I guess a few months ago when we started talking about who's going to be mayor, because it's a 2-year term, and I had sat back and watched Lloyd do a great job as mayor. I learned a lot from him, and I said, okay, if I'm asked, I'm going to serve. And so I asked my colleagues to support me, and they did. And it's been about 2.5 weeks, and I can tell that probably it's going to be a lot of this is my third interview of today already. This is what 1:00, and so I do a lot of these. Last night I gave a big speech at the Rotunda for the health center. And earlier this week, I was asked to give like 2 graduation speeches, and they were, later this year. I'm going to speak to already several schools. Next month is going to be busy because it's Black History Month, and I want to be in that space. It's busy, but I just feel like I need to be in that space as a Black elected leader in this community. But I can tell that as the only one on council as African American, that it's going to be a lot of of those type of engagements, which I understood. I think I need to be in that space, and so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge thing to step up to the plate to. So it's very admirable to see you
Thank
take
you.
that step. So yeah. So yeah, speaking more about Charlottesville as a city, and some of the things that we're facing. You had some issues addressed or that you discussed on your website, so I just wanted to go through some of them and see what you have to say about them. So the first issue on your website was criminal justice. So what are some things and solutions that you're thinking about putting in place and discussing on criminal justice?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I'm doing today is that when I leave here, I'm going to meet with the chair of the police oversight to police civilian oversight board, and they play a pivotal role in our community. One of the things that we have done is that we have hired an excellent police chief who is doing a lot of community policing. We were down probably 25% police officers. That's 20 to 30 officers, I think. And we are, I think by the end of this month, we'll be fully staffed. And that is amazing. He's a great leader. And I think he's hiring the right officers that want to make a difference. And the difference with that would be an example of having good police officers is the issue that happened in Market Street Park a few months ago, where they were able to work with the residents, the unhoused residents, and let them know about the Pacham and places where they could go. And so we didn't have any issue when it was time to remove them from the park, because the police officer established a relationship with them, and they trusted them to that they weren't going to get arrested. So it just made a big difference. They're out in the community. They're a lot more transparent, and I'm hearing kudos from all sides of the community, whereas black, white, rich, poor, the different nationalities that we had. I'm seeing a lot of support for the police department, and that's something that you definitely wouldn't have heard 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So we've come a long way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, next up is affordable housing.
Yeah, the big thing we're doing now is, really passing of the zoning ordinance that we just did, and that's a big thing. It's going to take a while. I had a meeting this morning at 8 o'clock with some developers who are interested in doing some real innovative type of affordable housing, and so we're going to work through that. So I have meetings like that quite often, and approving money for to purchase affordable housing. So I just feel like we're doing a lot and working with our community partners as well.
For sure. Yeah. This is one I'm really interested in hearing about, because obviously my mom is an educator, so I have to hear a lot of her anecdotes about things she has. But public education obviously is a big thing as well. So what are some solutions that you have going on there?
Yeah, the big thing that we did last year was approve the $90 million to redo Buford Middle School. And that is a big haul. That is a big haul that we've done. And we met last week to look at overhauling Walker as a preschool center, and giving the schools the resources that they need to be a highly effective school district, and with a budget request. So we let them legislate, or tell us what they need, I should say, and we try to provide. And I think we have been a great partner with them over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next is economic development.
Yeah. So we have done a lot as far as particularly helping small business of color to just starting. We approved a big kind of incubator location over on Carlton. We're really excited about that. That's going to help a lot of small businesses get off their feet. Our new zoning ordinance also allows for a lot more opportunities for economic development, and so I think that. And also we provide more support and services for our businesses on the corner in places like the downtown mall, because we can't do any of these other type of things that we want to do without the support of taxes that come from our businesses. So we have to have a strong business community to make the other stuff we do possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then finally, I wanted to touch on this one last, because I feel like climate change is often an issue that people think of more so on a macro level, if that makes sense. Or they more think about it as a big government solution rather than a local solution. So what are some things that you have going on with that?
Well, we the big thing we did is approve our climate plan for the city. And I think it has us going carbon free by 2050 or 2040. And so that was a big thing, because it gives us a plan to shoot for. And we're also going to be looking at soon at buses, whether they should be continue what we have now, which is kind of fossil fuel, or go with electric. You need to look at the pros and cons of that. But we're having these discussions now, and we're working with community partners like C3, Charlottesville Climate Collaborative. We have some smart people, some good groups in this town that we can lean on to help us in our different efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you know, part of the solution is people starting to internalize it a little more and
Hmm.
think of it more so as, something they have an impact on and something that can be solved locally, rather than just a macro sort of thing.
Yeah, particularly, we get a lot of support. I mean, a lot of comments from the university community, about affordable housing and climate, actually. So it's funny that a lot of the students talk about affordable housing, and they don't realize that, not that they're the cause of the problem, but not everywhere they can go, someone will pay $1,000, $1,200 for a room. That's part of the
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. So, are there any other, big issues that you think Charlottesville faces that you really want to address?
I think that what's going to be coming up in the next year is collective bargaining. How we're going to carry out and implement the zoning ordinance, and continue to tackle education and affordable housing. I mean, it may sound like a broken record, but it's always going to be there until we solve it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And is there any specific markers or any specific targets that it would take for you to think, like I've had a successful term, like I've
Hmm.
done it. I really did a great job as mayor.
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that, but I think that if I can go to a certain group of my people in the community that I highly trust, maybe a half dozen of them or so, and they say, "One, job well done," I'll feel good. And it's pretty, and it goes from people that are in their high school to in their 90s, and so the different aspects. So yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I got a last few questions that are kind of miscellaneous sort of
Mhm.
questions, more so deeper questions about life. Um, so, do you think you've found your purpose or found your calling in community service or in serving your community?
Um, I think I am where I need to be right now.
Hmm.
If you asked me 4 years ago if I would even be on Senate council, much less mayor, I would have said no. I'm happy on the school board. This is where I need to be. But I'm here now, and I think this is where the Lord wants me to be.
Hmm. Yeah. And do you have any advice to people who maybe are a little lost and who are trying to figure out where they need to be, and how
Yeah,
they can find that?
yeah. I would say find your passion. If you're not sure, talk to someone that may be older or more seasoned or been through it, and ask them for advice. Um, I find that is very helpful. There are people. I have a lot of people that come to me, ask me for advice and how to proceed, and and they find it very helpful. And I know that other people have other people as well. So find someone. If you're not sure, reach out. And if you don't have like a personal friend or whatever, or someone within your network, then you can um, there's professional help as well, whether it's a life coach or a psychologist or counselor or whatever. There are people out there to help.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Um, and as a city, obviously Charlottesville has struggled with its issues,
Hmm.
as we've discussed. I remember specifically going on vacation with my mom. I think we went to San Diego,
Hmm.
and we were chatting with some strangers, and they asked us where we were from. And upon telling them we were from Charlottesville, their facial expressions kind of changed,
Yeah.
um, and in an empathetic sort of way, I guess.
Hmm.
So Charlottesville, I think, doesn't have the reputation that maybe people want it to.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in. So, um, what what reputation would you like for Charlottesville to have, and how do you think we can acquire that?
Yeah, there's definitely some people feel that way, but if you look at what's happening in the housing market, it is clearly a highly desirable place to live because people are coming here in droves to
Hmm.
live. Is driving up the housing price here in this area. Um, I just think that I want people to have the feeling that my wife and I had, that this is a place we want to live and raise our family and have an impact in the community. I
Hmm.
think that that would be the barometer of success, and for everyone, whether you are what we call filthy rich and or stomped down poor, it needs
Hmm.
to be for everyone.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And then finally, obviously, you've got a lot of responsibility. I know you said you've already had a few interviews today.
Yeah,
So, um, do you get stressed? Do you get anxiety? And how do you address that? How do you deal with it?
yeah. I don't get anxiety. I mean, I'm sure that I'm not saying I won't, but if I'm sure that issues and things will come up over the next few years that it could. But right now, I'm a Christian, and I believe that the Lord would not give me more than I can bear. And I always reach out. I make sure that I have self time to debrief and take care of myself because I'm in it for the long game. It's helped me out because I've been doing not at this level for 30 some years. And so, the formula I've been doing so far is worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next? Let me see maybe a book, a book
Yeah.
come out or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's next from you?
Yeah. I think that, right now is to, survive the next year, 2 years as mayor, and probably within the next year and a half, decide if I'm going to run for council again or what my next steps are going to be. But right now, it's just to, you know, um, fall in love with this mayorship and continue um, to serve the community.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love what you're doing. I have so much appreciation, admiration for the things that you've got going on, and I think the community needs to hold up people like you and the types of things you do. So thank
Thank you
you.
so much, brother. I appreciate you. It's good to see you growing into a fine young man. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. And I appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure to have you on.
All right, brother. Take care.
Yep, you as well.
Bye bye.
Bye.